IVM.
Do you often dream about leading a more creative life? Whether you wanted to be a painter, a dancer, a cricketer, or a photographer. Maybe you wanted to play games for a living. Growing up, financial responsibilities often take us away from our true passions. Now imagine if you could explore that creativity while still making sure that your family is financially secure. Find a way for the artist and the realist within us to coexist. करो पूरे अपने इरादे, अपनों से किए सभी वादे. SBI Life अपने लिए, अपनों के लिए. To know more about our insurance plans with wealth creation, log on to www.sbilife.co.in. IRDAI registration number 111.
Hi, I'm Utsav, a behavior researcher by training and a slow traveler by passion. Postcards from Nowhere is a travel podcast where I condense a decade of travel experiences and explore not just the where, but also the why and how to travel. My stories emerge from slow traveling the less explored parts of the world: Bosnia and Herzegovina, Armenia, Uzbekistan, and even China. At the end of each story, I give practical tips and new ideas about how to travel better. This week, starting a new series, Fabulous Foods. We follow the coconut as it shaped the world, from world wars to cold wars, and how it could shape the very future of human civilization. It's the spring of 1943. The beauty of the season, however, was farthest from the minds of a few Americans. Post the deadly attack on Pearl Harbor, the Japanese had occupied islands in the Solomons with a view of interrupting supplies of the Allied forces between Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. The US was using squadrons of torpedo boats to launch attacks from islands it still controlled. 3 hours before dawn, the in charge of Torpedo Boat 109 suddenly found himself directly in line of a Japanese destroyer. It smashed into his boat, splitting it into two, and he was thrown into the water. 2 of his crew members perished. The others swam to an island which could provide safety. But after failing to find anything on 2 islands, they eventually found one that had friendly locals willing to help, though none of them spoke English. 2 of them, Eroni Kumana and Biku Gasa, knew of a US base on the rectangularly shaped Rendova Island. There was no way any of the remaining crew of Torpedo Boat 109 could make that journey, as they would be caught by the Japanese who were patrolling the waters. The in-charge came up with an ingenious idea. He asked the 2 islanders to board the canoe and load it with some fruits. Then he simply said, "Rendova." In a few hours, the crew saw help arrive and were rescued. The 2 islanders became heroes. But how did the crew communicate? Through just 2 islanders, a canoe, and fruits? About 3,700 miles away from Rendova lies the Hawaiian island of Molokai. Just a short hop from Honolulu, there is a post office near the airport. The postmaster does brisk business. He invites senders to write their own messages and attaches a colorful array of stamps to cover the postal cost, usually between $10 to $15 depending on weight. 8,000 miles from Hawaii lies the Indian state of Gujarat. About 36 kilometers from the town of Surat lies the town of Tarkeshwar. It's home to 2 lignite mines. In 2016, a team of scientists from Birbal Sahni Institute of Paleobotany in Lucknow published their findings of a discovery. They had discovered a fossil in these mines which dated back to the Eocene period. This meant that the fossil was an estimated 37 million years old. So what connects Japan and US at the height of the Second World War, a post office in Hawaii, and a 37 million year old fossil in India? The fossil discovered in the mine was of Cocos nucifera, or the coconut. At the post office in Hawaii, the reason it takes as much as $15 to send the post is because the post is the coconut itself. And the mystery of how the crew communicated their message to the US base Rendova? Well, the in-charge sent coconuts. He scrubbed the shell clean and with a knife began to carve a message. Nauru ISL commander. Native knows position. He can pilot. 11 alive. Need small boat. Kennedy. The in charge of Torpedo Boat 109 was none other than John F. Kennedy. who went on to become the 35th President of the United States. When he assumed office in 1961 and was navigating the Cold War, on his Oval Office desk sat the very same coconut shell with his wartime message. Coconuts have been around longer than Homo sapiens, as the fossils from Tarkeshwar would suggest. Seafaring Arab traders likely carried coconuts from India to East Africa as long as 2000 years ago. During the Middle Ages, when Kublai Khan was founding his Yuan dynasty in China and Genghis Khan his empire in Mongolia, coconuts were a prized rarity in Europe, encouraging nobles and leading churchmen to have them formed into cups mounted on gold or silver legs. In fact, the nut played a major role in trade, as many used coconuts as reserved ration on long voyages. In Bali, the Hindu-dominated island of Indonesia, coconuts have a rather interesting role. They celebrate a day of silence called Nyepi when nobody works or travels. There is no shopping, entertainment, or even food. It is a day reserved for contemplation and self-reflection. On the day before Nyepi, things are a little different. Among the many high-spirited celebrations, young men thrash each other with flaming coconut husks to burn their demons and chase bad spirits away. In the Java region during Ramadan, fiery coconuts turn football into 60 minutes of health and safety defying madness. But that madness may pale in comparison to the madness one could see in Seychelles. In 1968, the British and the Central Bank of Seychelles issued a fresh set of banknotes. It is a seascape with hills climbing from the shore in the background and a two-masted brig under sail in the foreground. It features a full-length portrait of Queen Elizabeth. To the right of the Queen's head are two coconut palms. Nothing odd about it till you turn the note 90 degrees. It becomes clear that the leaves of the palm are arranged to spell sex. By 1968, the Seychelles were agitating for independence, and a rogue engraver at the South London printer Bradbury Wilkinson fiddled with the design. He was sympathetic to the islanders' yearning for self-rule and intent on insulting the crown. However, the coconut kept some bad company as well. In 1942, in the chemistry department at Harvard University, worked an organic chemist by the name of Louis Fieser. He was working on a top secret project for the US Defense Department. The department was less creative then, but the project was simply called Anonymous Research Project No. 4. But their motives were no less sinister. Fieser was working with gasoline, to which he added 2 parts of coconut oil, 1 part naphthenic acid, and 1 part oleic acid. The final product he developed proved to be so successful in testing that the Dow Chemical Corporation was immediately asked to produce it at a commercial scale. On the night of 6th March 1945, the US Army retaliated and bombed Japan with this very product. An estimated 100,000 people died and over 1 million became homeless. Much later in 1972, the US was fighting in Vietnam and used it extensively. The war was immortalized in the Pulitzer-winning prize picture of a young girl crying in the middle of a road since the product had severely burned her back. The product came to be known as napalm, and the girl was known to the world as the Napalm Girl. While by no means it was the coconut's finest hour, but then in recent times it's recovering its reputation. In the south of France, in the commune of Saint-Paul-les-Doux, runs an experiment which could hold the key to mankind's survival. The highly ambitious project is known as ITER, the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor. Backed by 35 countries, it aims to replicate the reaction which happens in the sun, making hydrogen nuclei collide in a vacuum at very high temperatures. But to create that vacuum, ITER uses cryopumps that work by trapping gases on a cold surface. Now the gases need to be absorbed really well, and that one material which outperforms everything is charcoal. Specifically, charcoal made from coconuts. It has been in use for the last 15 years with no degradation in performance. If nuclear fusion becomes a commercial reality, it might end up solving the world's energy problems. From games in Indonesia to world wars and cold wars, the coconut has played a major role in shaping the world as we see it today. It was the culprit in napalm and the potential hero in nuclear fusion. It became whatever we could mold it into. As we travel, we must remember that there are few aspects of nature and human existence that are inherently pure or evil. It is our mindset and actions which make them so. If you like this podcast,
Don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Utsav Memory on Twitter and YVTravel42 on Instagram.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On this round is on me. Gauri has a conversation on building a sustainable luxury travel ecosystem with entrepreneur Jaisal Singh. On the Wire Talk, Siddharth asks American philosopher Jason Stanley to decode his book, How Fascism Works, The Politics of Us and Them. On The Longest Constitution, Priya explains the concept of invisible work and how Javed Akhtar and the copyright law are connected. On Postcards from Nowhere, Utsav tells us an interesting story that connects West Indies cricket, jackals, and Mariamman temples. And on All Things Policy, the Takshashila folk look into the Ukraine-Russia conflict and its associated geopolitics. So, on a personal note, I wanted to let you all know that this week marks the 7th anniversary since I started IVM. I'm eternally grateful to the team we have here, especially Kavita Rajwade and Tejas Sringarpure, who have been here since the beginning. They've seen the struggles, our eventual acquisition by Pratilipi, and our continued struggles to make podcasting a large and thriving part of the media industry. We have the best hosts in the world, and I have to say that I'm so glad and so grateful that they have chosen to work with us. And finally, I'd like to say thank you to you, the millions of folks who have heard or watched our content. All I can say is, you ain't seen nothing yet. I hope you join us as we continue this journey. In the meanwhile, do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any platform you're listening to. You can also check us out on YouTube. To get a list of all of our channels, you can go to ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, where you can go to all the channels. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, SBI Life Insurance, Bank of Baroda, Max Life Insurance, India Water Portal, and HDFC Life Insurance. Thank you so much for making this possible.
We know you love fast food,
Fast fashion,
faster payment.
lightning fast internet speed.
Then why not fast information?
On Think Fast, where we discuss the latest developments in the world of technology, business, marketing, pop culture.
With a side of sarcasm and my dad jokes, not just mine.
Not mine, Varun. My jokes are funny. So join me, guys, the funnier one, Suchita Salvan, co-founder of LBB.
And me, Varun Dugirala, the co-founder of The Glitch, as we think fast only on the IVM network.
Fresh episodes out every Monday.
On the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcast from.